did want to spend a little time and talk about what's going on in the ports. And no better person to do this than Stas Margaronis, California ports reporter with the American Journal of Transportation. And, sir, it is good to chat with you. How are you?
Happy New Year, my friend.
Oh, we made it. It's always a good year when you see the new year. And appreciate you jumping in. Now, where are you? Are you on the road? Where are you traveling? I-5? Where are you exactly?
No, I am home today in Santa Rosa, California. I'm off to Oakland tomorrow, and I'm off to Palm Springs on the weekend. But Palm Springs is actually vacations,
nice.
So I'm not working. I'm not allowed to.
Nice. We will not call you. So enjoy, man. Well deserved. Thanks for jumping in. I was reading a story about federal maritime regulators. They're opening up the investigation wallet, and they're looking into whether ocean common carriers are limiting the ability of truckers and shippers to choose their own chassis providers at the U.S. ports. And this is going to be in violation of the, I think it's called the Shipping Act, and the FMC is looking for public comments on what is going on there. So what is the FMC investigating, and why is the chassis choice a big deal, a big issue for the drayage and the port side?
Mark, this has been a big issue for many years with the Agriculture Transportation Coalition, and it's featured at a number of the AgTC meetings. The AgTC represents mostly agricultural exporters, but also tends to be shippers who are smaller shippers and truckers. And this issue has been a long-standing concern. Let me just read to you the first sentence of what the Federal Maritime Commission said. They said they're launching an investigation related to possible non-compliance of the Ships Act by ocean common carriers that may be unjustly and unreasonably restricting motor carriers, truckers, and shippers in their choice of chassis providers. Additionally,
right.
So what this is, Mark, is about 15 years ago, the ocean carriers got out of owning and providing chassis, but they entered into agreements with leasing companies to provide those chassis. The allegation from the shippers and some of the truckers that have been opposing this is that this has allowed the ocean carriers to maintain their control over the chassis market and create a discriminatory environment.
Well, maintaining control of that, what kind of shape are these chassis in? And I would imagine that maybe the chassis quality of it, that's going to restrict you the choice. I mean, that's going to affect everybody down the line, right? Truckers, dray dock, cargo, velocity at the busy gateways like LA and Long Beach.
Absolutely. Not just everywhere, Mark. And so to answer your question specifically, one of the concerns is safety. Many truckers today, trucking companies do have their own chassis. They contract with exporters and shippers who prefer to have somebody who has their own chassis because they want to make sure that that container, whether it's coming in or out, gets to where it's supposed to go to. So that's the concern around safety. There's also a concern about price. The allegation from the critics is that the ocean carriers and their chassis provider leasing companies are offering discounted chassis, but they're not always safe. And where possible, the shippers and the truckers prefer to use their own chassis, which they know are safe and which they maintain.
And what is the FMC looking for? They want to get some input, obviously. They want to get evidence that the stakeholders are being taken advantage of here. What kind of information is the FMCSA looking for to maybe illustrate this, or even if it doesn't?
well,
exist. I mean, that may be another story there.
Well,
what are they looking for from the FMC side?
So, Mark, one of the issues is that this creates nervousness. First of all, they're asking for concrete evidence that there's discriminatory behavior. And what they say is the FMC is saying seeks to determine whether common ocean carriers are using practices that directly or indirectly deprive truckers and shippers from negotiating and dealing with chassis providers. So they're looking for evidence over the next 60 days to find out whether, in fact, this is true. The interesting thing here, Mark, is the new probe revisits the FMC's 2024 ruling in Intermodal Carriers Conference versus OSEMA, in which it determined that it is unreasonable under the Shipping Act for regulations and practices to require motor carriers and shippers to use only the chassis provider designated by ocean common carriers. So the problem here is, Mark, is they've gone back on something that already was supposed to have fixed the problem, and apparently it has not. So the answer to your question, they're asking for evidence from people, shippers, truckers, that they've been discriminated against.
And could this result, Stas, in new rulemaking, enforcement action, that kind of a thing? What would you expect?
Yes, absolutely.
Some new rules come out of this?
It's been a long-standing problem, Mark, and something's got to give here. And I can only assume that the FMC's decision to go back and renew this issue was only done because they were not satisfied that the law was being observed. So I would expect that you're going to start that the result of this, if it finds that there was discrimination, is going to result in a much stiffer enforcement on the ocean carriers' leasing practices as regards to the chassis.
Are you getting some off-the-cuff remarks from terminal operators, chassis pool managers? Are they reaching out saying, Stas, this is what's going on, here's why we are going to be part of the discussion? What have you heard maybe through the grapevine?
Through the grapevine, I'm hearing that the small trucker and shipper believes that they continue to be discriminated against, that they are afraid of retaliation by the ocean carriers, that they're hoping the FMC will intervene this time in a decisive way and deal with this problem. But as you can imagine, Mark, if you're doing a lot of import and export business, and you're dealing with having to rely on ocean carriers and maybe leasing companies for your chassis, you're a little nervous about upsetting the apple cart.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely. Stas, thank you, sir. Got to get ready to wrap it up and enjoy your vacation. Well, you're in vacation now. We got to do this and give the phone number out again. It's 888-876-23368888 Road Dog, and that is going to be the number to call. We're going to go into part 2 of this in just a couple of minutes. And again, thank you very much for jumping in. I do want to get into some of the numbers about the Port of Los Angeles celebrating their third best year in their 118-year history, 2025. The Port of L.A., Port of Long Beach, it's all interconnected to some degree when you think about the economic benefits and the strength of the ports and what they do for local communities. Local ports, local communities really do benefit from that. And Stas, thank you again. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. We want you to get in. Travis, do you often maybe run drayage? Have you ever run drayage before? What has been the turn time? I do want to get into that when we come back in a few minutes. So the important thing, hearing from you. And again, make sure that you jump in. There's a number of ways, by the way, when we come back in a few minutes. So the important thing, hearing from you. And again, make sure that you jump in. There's a number of ways, by the way, that you can certainly reach us. You can reach us through social media. It is up on X. You can reach us on a number of platforms. You can find me on Facebook. I'm out there, and man, we want to get you involved in that mix. All right, we got more coming up on the other side a little bit later on in the course of the show. We're going to talk with Steve Wilhelms. He is a noted safety expert, and we're going to talk about a report that has come out from WFAA television about what is called the blind spot. And we're going to talk about the chameleon carriers and how they keep changing the landscape. Dr. Bud Weinstein is going to be on board from Southern, this operator of travel centers, has announced a partnership with Tesla to install semi-chargers at select locations along some of the major highway corridors. And the first sites are expected to be open in summer of this year. Now, press releases indicated that Tesla charging stations will be built at pilot locations along Interstate 5, Interstate 10, and other major corridors, quoting where the need for heavy-duty charging is the highest, according to the company. And the partnership adds to Pilot's growing alternative fuel portfolio. And the company is a wholly owned subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway, operated more than 900 travel centers across 44 states. I'm Mark Willis reporting right here on the Road Dog.
Pop culture personality.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going into hour number 2 on the program, and I want to make mention that this portion of Sirius XM's Road Dog Trucking News, it is going to be brought to you by Rotella, your truck, your call to dial in right now. And let's talk about the ports. Want to hear from you? You know the phone number is 888-876-2336, 8888 Road Dog. And, you're going to get in. Stas, Margaronis is on it. Hey, let's send folks to your website where they can read up on your great work. We're going to go. I think it's AJOT.com.
Yes. Yes.
No.
www.ajot.com.
Here, one of the big stories involving the trucking industry is the turn times at the ports. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But let's get into the Port of L.A., and they are posting, incredible numbers. Their third best year in its 118-year history. They reportedly handled 10.2 million TEUs. Those are going to be those 20-foot equivalent boxes last year, marking the third busiest calendar year in its 118-year history. And what's the big picture there? What is driving these numbers? Is a lot of it maybe due to maybe the port saying, well, with tariffs still in place, we're going to try to get as much cargo in as possible. What are some of the specifics going on with that? What do you think?
Mark, you're absolutely right. There was a lot of front loading in 2025 by importers who are concerned about the tariffs, concerned about the uncertainty, and who really wanted to get stuff in ahead of the tariffs. That situation began to slow down in the latter part of 2025, so that the last couple of months, particularly November and December, were much lower. So it's kind of a mixed picture. The first 2/3 of the year, 3/4 of the year were pretty good. But the last was not. So the overall number for 2025, as you mentioned, was the third best for the Port of LA, 10.2 million TEUs. But since then, there has begun to be a downturn. The National Retail Federation is projecting that volumes for the first 3-4 months of 2026 are likely to be down for U.S. ports from 5 to 12% on a year-over-year basis. So we're in for a downturn probably until May.
When you look at some of the overflow that is maybe hitting the Port of L.A., could Port of Long Beach or Port of Oakland get some business out of that for maybe much quicker, maybe to the inbound destination? Could this have a ripple effect on the other 2 ports?
Okay, so Long Beach and Los Angeles, as you said, kind of work in tandem. They're two different ports, but they operate on some levels in a collaborative way. The Port of Long Beach had an equally good year in 2025, very much similar to the Port of Los Angeles. Unfortunately, the Port of Oakland reported that its volumes were unchanged in 2025. So things are different for the ports going north. So Oakland and Seattle and Tacoma have not had the same benefit. And the reason for that, Mark, is that there is increasingly a focus on bringing more of the trans-Pacific merchandise, imports and exports, through either the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach.
Yeah, and what could be some of the risks in your estimation, Stas, that could maybe prevent the port from maintaining the momentum into this year? You mentioned it's going to be slow until about May. Could labor concerns maybe slow some of this down, maybe at the back half of the year?
Mark,
what are the contracts up for renewal on the labor side?
Mark, we're okay on labor contracts. Both longshoremen on the West Coast and the East Coast have signed new contracts in the last couple of years. So the issue here is the downturn, the effect of tariffs, and the continued uncertainty that people continue to have. Now, we just heard that the 50% tariffs that were slapped on India have been substantially reduced. That's good news.
Right.
But Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, went to the Davos Economic Summit in Switzerland a couple of weeks ago. And what he said, Mark, is that it's time for Canada and Europe that have faced a number of tariff issues with the United States to start looking elsewhere for its trade. And Carney had just been in China, where he negotiated a major deal on increased exports of oil to China and importing renewable energy products, including electric vehicles, which Chinese electric vehicles are going to start running on Canadian highways. So the threats against Canada, they're responding, and it's not good for trade with the United States when we continue to threaten people, because sometimes they fight back.
Yeah, they do, indeed, no doubt. Now, talk about technology and automation. I got to imagine if ports, not only in California, but across this great land of ours, are looking at systems maybe to advance the yard management platforms. And we hear a lot about that from many of the drivers that call in about the slow turn times. Yeah, getting better, but not to where it should be. Are you hearing about specific automation technologies the ports are implementing? What problems are they designed to solve? And from your reporting, why are the long truck wait times still going on, even as the ports are investing a lot of money in this stuff, in the digital system?
So, Mark, the answer to your question is that there's several at the Port of Long Beach Container Terminal, at the Port of Los Angeles, TraPac and APMT have all electrified their operations in recent years so that they are much more automated than they have been. At those terminals, the wait time is running around 40 minutes per truck. For the non-automated ones, the wait time is closer to 65, 70 minutes. So, in fact, the ones that are automated have much faster wait times. And the reason for that is the automation provides a much more predictive environment for your ability to schedule the container. And you have much better control over that than when you don't have an automated system. So the three automated ones, TraPac, APMT, and Long Beach Container Terminal, are all running around 40 minutes. The other ones are not. And now you have raised an issue that is a big concern for truckers up and down the coast, and that has to do with appointment times. And they are using appointment apps that sometimes are quite cumbersome. The truckers have been complaining about this. Some of the providers are trying to make improvements, but there definitely have been a lot of problems. And one of the things that's happened, Mark, is that in some systems, companies are using bots to mass go in to go and get appointments, and they're driving out people who can't get in because they don't have the bots. So there's been an effort to try and get the providers of these apps to get the bots out, but it's not easy, and that is one of the problems that's been affecting the truckers.
I think that from the cost financial analytics of that the ports have got to say, well, we got to invest in this because we got to keep it moving. We got to keep the truckers happy, get a shorter turn time for them. And I'm thinking this kind of technology on the appointment system, improved communication is going to cost a lot of money. The investment's got to be made, right? I can't see a port saying, well, we'll just wait.
No,
we don't need that at this point.
So,
is it a race to keep up with the Joneses on the port side, port to port?
So what's happened at the Port of Long Beach is they've invested in on-dock rail at their terminals, and that process began last year. It'll be completed in 2032. And Noel Hasagaba, the CEO of the Port of Long Beach, told me a couple of weeks ago that he's expecting the rail dwell times to go from 4 days to 1 day. So that's an example on the rail side of how the situation by investing in infrastructure is likely to improve. Now, the Port of Savannah has invested heavily in its technology, both in terms of cargo handling and interports. They're doing quite well. So on the East Coast, Savannah is one of the ports that's doing quite well. Houston has also made major upgrades. They have a modern container terminal that's operating quite well. The truckers should see benefits from those kinds of investments. On the East Coast, on the West Coast, as I said, APMT, TraPac, and Long Beach Container Terminal have made those investments. Other terminals are in the process of doing that too. So the truckers should benefit. $75 billion, and it's owed to anybody who paid those tariffs. So whatever the situation is, that money legally is supposed to be repaid. We're expecting a number of lawsuits on this. It could be a big issue in the November election with a lot of companies and individuals and even consumer groups demanding that there be refunds. So this is a huge issue, Mark, and I have to say, I don't think anybody has a really clear idea of how this is going to end up, but legally, there's a very strong case to be made that $175 billion needs to be refunded to the Americans who were assessed on those tariffs.
Okay, very good. Yep, and I agree with that. I mean, this is going to be a long, legal, drawn-out battle, to say the very least. But in the meantime, though, that the tariffs are still going to go on under a different, description or legal language that is being used, I think, up to like 150 days.
Yes.
So we're going to still see this story going forward. Stas, thank you, sir, as always, for joining me on the program. And one more time, where can folks find you and read up on your great reporting?
Okay, thank you, Mark. www.ajot.com, www.ajot.com. And Mark, there will be legal challenges on the Section 122 of the new tariffs that were announced by the administration. So those are legally going to be challenged as well.
It's a story to be continued.